My name is Kelly Clarkson. I'm 33 years old and a stay-at-home mom. My husband, Paul, is 39. He's very close to his mother and often speaks to me in a hurtful way. We have 2 kids, an 11-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. After we got married, I started living with Paul's parents. For years now, I've been struggling with my mother-in-law's demands. When I talk to my husband about it, he just says, "Do what my mom says." It feels like my mother-in-law treats me like a servant. Every morning, she calls me right after she wakes up and tells me to come wake her up, even though she's already awake. I have to pull her out of bed, help her get dressed, take her to the bathroom, and then bring her to the living room for breakfast. She has trouble walking, especially in the mornings, so she needs help getting around. By afternoon, she can move a little better on her own.
She often yells at me.
For example, after meals, she demands hot tea right away. One time I said, "The water will boil soon," and she shouted, "Why didn't you boil it before? You know I always have tea after meals." But the day before, she told me not to boil the water until she finished eating. It feels like she's trying to make my life hard on purpose. Paul and I have been married for 11 years, but her walking problems only started about 6 years ago. They're getting worse, even with hospital visits. I've suggested we go walking together to help her move more, but she refuses. Before she had trouble walking, we used to cook and shop together and got along okay. But over time, she started yelling at me and treating me badly. She used to call me Ash, but now she calls me Hey or Airhead. I used to care about my mother-in-law a lot and even relied on her in the past, so I tried to accept the hard situation I'm in now. But it makes me sad to think about how kind she used to be. I talk to my husband about this almost every day, but he just says, "Do what my mom says," and doesn't listen to anything I say, even when I try to talk about her health. That's why I started recording videos to show that I've told him everything. This way, he can't pretend he didn't know what was going on. After a long day of being shouted at and doing everything my mother-in-law asked, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law that made things even worse. She said, "Hey, Linda is coming home because she's going to have a baby. Make sure you take good care of her." I was shocked. I didn't even know Linda was pregnant or married. I asked my mother-in-law, "When did Linda get married?"
I didn't know anything about it.
She said, "I just found out too. But she said she's coming, so get ready. Do you have a problem with what I told you?" She yelled at me so loudly that I realized she only sees me as a servant and someone who will take care of Linda. I knew asking more questions would only make things worse, so I said, "Yes, I understand," and stopped talking. Later, I went out to buy food for dinner. When I came back home, there were a lot of cardboard boxes at the front door. My son ran up to me right away and said, "Mom, Annie says she's going to live here and take my room. Do something." Then my daughter came and said, "They told me I have to share a room with my brother. We can fit 2 beds, but there's only room for 1 desk." They both looked upset. I went to my mother-in-law in the living room to ask what was going on. "Mother, is what the children said true?" But she cut me off and said, "Yes. If the kids told you, then go move Brian's things to the other room. And for dinner, Linda wants steak. So make that." I had no idea Linda was even coming today, let alone changing the kids' rooms or wanting steak for dinner. Then, out of nowhere, Linda started yelling at me too. "Hey Kelly, you have no right to complain to Mom. You're just a freeloader," Linda said, crossing her arms and glaring at me. "Why are you acting so important? Just do what Mom says and take care of her." The children were scared of how Linda was acting and hid behind me. To protect them, I said, "I'll talk to my husband about this," and took them to their room. Once we were in the room, the kids asked, "When is Annie going to leave? She's really mean and scary." Even while I was cooking dinner, they stayed close to me, clearly nervous and not wanting to be alone. I couldn't wait any longer for my husband to get home, so I called him. "Did you know Linda is coming here today to give birth?" I asked. He was surprised. He didn't know either. I told him everything, including how the kids felt. He just said, "Mom told you to clear out one of the kids' rooms, right? So just do it. There's no problem. If Linda wants steak for dinner, make it. Just do what Mom says." Of course, Linda is angry. You need to explain everything to the kids. But the room is too small for 2 beds and a desk. What are we supposed to do? I asked. That's not my problem. Figure it out, he replied. I felt so hopeless. Seeing me like that, my son said, Mom, it's okay. We just have to deal with it for now. My daughter added, We can handle it until Auntie leaves. Don't worry. They were right, it's only for a little while, until Linda gives birth. It won't last forever. Their words gave me strength. You're right, I told them. We just have to get through this. But after she leaves, we'll put the room back the way it was. I'm sorry for making you go through this. The kids, who had looked so worried, finally smiled. Then hurry up and make dinner before Annie gets mad, they said. I went to the kitchen, took the meat out of the freezer, and started making steak. A little while later, my husband came home, looking cheerful. He had a box of cake in his hand. As dinner time came, the kids came out of their room and were happy to see the cake. I thought my husband bought the cake to say sorry for how the kids were treated. I told the children, We'll have cake after dinner. But I was wrong. This cake is for Linda and Mom, my husband said without emotion. I asked, Why didn't you get one for the kids too? Don't ask silly questions, he replied. I bought it because you made Mom and Linda feel bad. My daughter started crying and said, We didn't do anything wrong. But my husband ignored her and gave the cake to Linda. I held my crying daughter and tried to change the topic. Linda, congratulations on your pregnancy. When is the baby due? I asked with a smile. Thank you. I think in October, Linda replied. I was shocked. That meant she was only 4 months pregnant, yet she was already planning to live here and give birth at home. No wonder her belly didn't show at all. Then my mother-in-law asked, So, when are you getting married? What's your partner like? Linda looked nervous and quickly said, Oh, my partner? He's the president of a company. He's super busy, so he can't visit. But he cares about my health and wants me to stay here. I thought, she's lying. From her panicked answer, it seemed like not only the pregnancy, but even the marriage might not be true. I decided to find out the truth. The next day, after taking care of my mother-in-law and seeing my husband and kids off, I told my mother-in-law, I'll be stepping out for a bit, and left the house. First, I went to the apartment where Linda used to live. Luckily, the janitor was working nearby, right in front of her door. I walked over and asked, Do you know if someone named Linda Clarkson lived here? He replied, Are you a friend of Miss Clarkson? Yes, I said. I couldn't reach her, so I came to check on her.
He seemed to believe me.
He said, Actually, I haven't been able to contact her either. She hasn't paid rent in 7 months, and I was getting worried. I thought maybe she collapsed inside, so I was just about to open the door. He asked if I'd help check, and I agreed. He gave me the key, clearly nervous. It would be terrible if something happened to her, I said. I'll go in first. Please follow me. When we opened the door, we saw a pile of unopened letters and postcards marked urgent notice scattered on the floor. I walked in first and called out, Linda? Linda, are you here? As I stepped farther into the apartment, a man sitting on the sofa jumped up, surprised by our sudden arrival. Who are you? I'm calling the police, he said, reaching for his phone. The janitor quickly stepped in and said, I'm the janitor of this building. We couldn't reach Miss Clarkson, and we were worried something had happened to her. That's why we came in. The janitor then added, This apartment is only for one person. Who are you? We might need to call the police on you. Looking nervous, the man sat down and introduced himself. My name is Henry. I'm dating Miss Clarkson. Henry then said something shocking. Linda had told him to stay here until I and the kids moved out because her brother, my husband, was planning to divorce me. She had been trying to break up our family and take over our home. I was shocked and tried to stay calm. I said, I know Linda. I came because I couldn't contact her. I also heard she's pregnant. Is the baby yours? Henry looked surprised. Pregnant, he said, confused. That's when I realized something wasn't right. Henry then shared that he had been having an affair with Linda while he was still married. His ex-wife found out, and that caused their divorce. He was supposed to take over a top position at his father-in-law's company, but after the divorce, he lost everything and had to quit his job. With nowhere else to go, he moved in with Linda. He told us he had a son from his previous marriage and didn't want another child. The divorce had hurt his son deeply, and he still felt guilty. Even while living with Linda, he missed his old family and regretted what he had done.
He began to cry.
I was surprised that he was telling us all of this, but he said he had been feeling lost for a long time and just needed someone to talk to. The janitor then asked, "If you still think about your family, why are you staying with Miss Clarkson? Maybe it's time to think things over." Henry seemed to take that seriously. After thinking for a bit, he picked up his phone and made a call. It seemed like he was calling his ex-wife. He apologized, admitted his mistakes, and promised to live in a way that would make her and their son proud. He asked for a second chance to prove he had changed. After the call, he turned to us and said sorry for everything. He said he was going to live on his own from now on and try to be a better father. He thanked us for helping him see things clearly, packed his things into a bag, and left the apartment. After he left, the janitor said he wished he had asked Henry to contact Linda, since she was the person who signed the rental contract. Asked the janitor who the guarantor was, and he said it was Linda's brother. I told him he should contact the guarantor, then I went back home. When I got home, Linda was crying and my mother-in-law was comforting her. I acted like I didn't know anything, and went to the bedroom to change my clothes. Suddenly, Linda came into my room without knocking. "Can you call my boyfriend using your phone? Mine's been blocked, and he's not answering me," she said. I said no. I didn't want to call a stranger using my own phone. Because of that, Linda started holding a grudge against me. Just then, my mother-in-law called for Linda from the living room. Linda glared at me, made a clicking sound with her tongue, and left the room. In the living room, my mother-in-law was questioning Linda. "Paul said he got a call from the janitor at your apartment. Is it true you haven't been paying your rent? And who was that man living there? Is he your boyfriend?" Linda suddenly shouted, "Yes. I came back here planning to start a life with him. But now he wants to go back to his old family, and left me." After yelling, she started crying again. I was just walking into the living room when I heard her say, "I couldn't reach him, so I asked Kelly to help, but she refused. She's just being mean and trying to keep us apart." She turned her anger toward me. "How dare she ignore me? She's just a freeloader," she shouted like a child. For a moment, I hoped my mother-in-law would tell her to stop. But instead, she joined in. "I feel the same way. That woman doesn't even know her place. She's not family, just a daughter-in-law acting too bold," she said. Then she added, "Linda, if you're going to live here with your boyfriend, then Kelly and her kids will have to leave." I had done so much for my mother-in-law, even putting her needs above my children's. I took her insults and harsh words, hoping one day we'd go back to the happy times we once had. But I now realized that those days were gone for good. I felt crushed. When I walked into the living room, they both started attacking me. "So, you refused Linda's request? Didn't I tell you? You're just freeloaders. You have no right to say no," my mother-in-law yelled. "It's because you didn't leave that he got tired and walked away," Linda added. I thought back to my talk with Henry. His reason for leaving Linda was simple. His original family mattered more to him. He chose to go back to them. So, this wasn't my fault. Still, I decided to push Linda's buttons a little. I knew she'd lash out more, but being called a freeloader and seeing my children treated badly couldn't go on. I had made up my mind to cut ties with this family. "You should call him," Linda said like a child. "Tell him I'm crying and ask him to come back." Hearing her talk like that, along with my mother-in-law agreeing, was the last straw for me. I said, "All right, if that's what you want, then give me his number." She gave me Henry's number, and I put the call on speaker. When he answered, I repeated Linda's words. "Linda is very upset about the breakup. She's crying. Please come back." Henry replied calmly, "I don't know who you are, but I've ended things with Linda. I love my real family. What I had with Linda was a mistake, and I regret it." Linda suddenly lost control, grabbed the phone and shouted, "What about the baby in my stomach? You need to take responsibility and marry me." Henry responded, Linda, it wasn't long ago that I bought you medicine and pads because you had terrible period pain. And we never had that kind of relationship. Not after my divorce. Linda went silent. Henry said, "I'm sorry," and hung up. I hoped they'd finally realize Henry left because of his own choice, not because of me. But of course, that's not how it went. As soon as the call ended, Linda snapped at me. "You didn't try hard enough. If you'd been more emotional, maybe he would have come back. It's your fault." She was acting like a child, even though she's 36, 4 years older than me. I was shocked.
Then, my mother-in-law joined in.
"She's right. It's all your fault. You are a freeloader. Get out of this house right now." As expected, I replied, "Understood," and started packing my things. That evening, when the children came home from school, I sat them down and said, "I'm going to divorce your father and we'll leave this house." After a short pause, my son smiled and said, "That sounds like a good idea."
My daughter smiled too.
"Grandma and aunt are scary. I wanted to leave a long time ago." I asked the kids, "Will you be okay without your dad?" My son answered, "Dad was never on your side or ours, so it's okay." My daughter asked, "Are we going to live at Grandma's house on your side, just the three of us?" It seemed she wasn't worried about her dad at all. Soon after, my husband came home. I didn't greet him. I was busy packing. He walked into the room angrily after hearing his mother and sister's version of the story. This was the final scene I had imagined. "Hey, you made Mom and Linda upset. Didn't I tell you to just do what Mom says?" he said, using the same line he always did. "I understand," I replied. "That's why I'm listening and leaving. Also, please sign this." I stared at him and placed the divorce papers in front of him. "Where are you and your parasite kids going now?" he said as he signed the papers without hesitation. "Even if you leave, you're jobless. You won't be able to raise 2 kids on your own." He walked out of the room and returned to the living room like nothing had happened. Then I called my brother. "Can you come with a truck tomorrow morning to help us move?" I had already told him everything about my husband, my mother-in-law, and how Linda suddenly moved in. My parents knew too, thanks to my brother. They had even advised me to get a divorce. So, the phone call was quick. "You've done well, Kelly.
Don't blame yourself," my brother said.
His words gave me a bit of relief. The next day, my brother and some of his coworkers came with a truck and helped us move. They worked quickly. Linda stood nearby, arms crossed, watching coldly. When I said, "Please take care of your mother," she didn't say anything. She just went back inside without any expression. Our new place was in a family-friendly apartment owned by my dad. It was right next to my parent house. Since a unit was available, we got to rent it at a low price. My parents had suggested we all live together, but after being called parasites so many times, I didn't want to burden them. The kids were so happy with the new place. They quickly chose their own rooms and helped with unpacking. Hearing their laughter felt like healing after everything we had been through. Then my phone rang. It was my ex-husband, sounding panicked. "Mom's in trouble. She's soiled herself, and she's calling for the slave to come clean it up. Come right away." "Why should I?" I answered calmly. "Of course you should. Mom says you have to." "The whole house stinks," he shouted, like he forgot we were already divorcing. I said, "Why would I? I'm not part of your family anymore. I'm just a stranger now. Remember?" He exploded in anger. "After I took care of you and your 2 parasite kids, you can't even do this one thing?" I could handle being called a parasite myself, but I hit my limit when he started calling the children that too. "Did you even know your mother has dementia?" I said. "I've told you many times about the hospital's diagnosis, but you never listened. I even have video proof. I'm not going back to a house where you call my precious kids parasites. Since that smell is from your dear mother, think of it as an air freshener and deal with it." I let everything out at once. I was usually quiet and obedient, so my sudden change shocked my ex-husband into silence. "Your mother is rated as needing level 3 care," I continued. "That means she needs help from morning to night. It's hard, but good luck." Then I hung up and blocked his number. Later, Linda called, screaming at me to come clean up. I quietly hung up on her and blocked her too. 3 weeks later, a letter from my ex-husband arrived at my parents' house. It explained how bad things had gotten since I left. Without anyone to boss around, my mother-in-law's dementia had gotten worse. Linda had returned home pretending she was pregnant and planning to give birth just so she could live comfortably again. But my ex blamed her for the mess they were in now. They tried to find a care facility for their mother, but all the options were too expensive, so they had no choice but to care for her at home. Linda wanted to go back to her old apartment, but because my ex hadn't paid the rent, the lease was canceled. She had nowhere else to go and had to stay and help care for her mother. My ex and Linda kept fighting about who should take care of her. Ironically, even though my mother-in-law sometimes forgets who my ex and Linda are, she never forgets to call me the slave. For me, waking up with the morning sun shining through the window feels like a gift. A fresh start for me and my children. I have a pharmacist license and hospital experience, but now I'm working at a drugstore. Returning to work after 11 years isn't easy, but no challenge compares to the pain of living with my ex's family. The kids quickly made new friends at school and are happy in their daily life. Most of all, I'm thankful that we can now live as a family, smiling and at peace.